Hi educators, welcome back to my channel. Today's Storykate videocast is about anecdotal observations. In the previous video about observations, we covered jottings. Today we delve a little bit deeper into anecdotal observations, which is a type of observing children. So it's very popular kind of observations. So I hope you will be able to learn a lot. Let me know what you think and post any questions in the comments below. Let's start from the beginning. Here is an observation that we are going to read. It's an example of anecdotal observation. Hula dance in sarongs. Today at the preschool room we had so much fun learning to dance like people from Samoa. The experience was part of our island investigation. Cohen, Olivia, Dean, Claire, Zoe, and Carter, Tyrell, and Evian took part in the experience. Our co-educator T brought a suitcase full of bright and colorful sarongs, and the children were offered a choice of fabrics. We also were invited to put on sunnies or sunglasses and lace that we made before. Warm and sunny weather set up the mood for our island party. We had a talk about sarongs and had a discussion about how to wear them and how different it is to our way of dressing up or getting dressed. Carter said that he is wearing pants today. Sarong looks more like a skirt, so he actually refused to wear this sarong. I asked children why, so they tried to figure. And we had a discussion about different types of dress that people wear. Sometimes the dress might look like a long dress, sometimes it's a cultural dress, and they often are worn by people of different genders. So Carter and Cohen were not sure if they would like to wear it because it looks like a skirt. So for me it was an opportunity to obviously jump in and provide some intentional teaching, or at least ask some open-ended critical questions. So I showed a video of male dancers in sarong, and we concluded that boys can wear sarongs too. After that, Tiffany showed us how to put sarongs on. We all dressed up and started to dance. Tiffany's background and sound knowledge of Samoan culture helped us to learn a few dancing moves, like waving our hands and moving our hips. Olivia, Zoe, Ella, and Dean enjoyed dancing. When we went outside dressed up in our sarongs, junior preschool children joined us and chose sarongs as well. So as you can see, this is a story. Yeah, but it's not exactly a learning story. It's an anecdotal observation that is written like a narrative. So learning story that I mentioned is also a type of narrative, but this one is written in the past, and it is like a story that I'm telling to parents. I'm writing about what happened. Yes, so basically answering this key question. Let's look at analysis here. Some pictures, so I blur children's faces for privacy reasons, of course. But you can see that during the experience, children expressed interest in learning about other cultures. They were involved in learning to dance. They experienced links to outcome to community, or children are connected and contribute to their world. As children explored the diversity of cultures, different ways of being and belonging, they demonstrated sense of belonging and expressed their opinions. Children also showed a strong sense of identity as they explored their identities and points of view through dramatic play. We were thinking that next we could cook maybe some traditional meals that are associated with an island culture, for example, fruit stews, use of essential oils. We were thinking of cooking coconut rice, but even looking at coconut as typical fruit, or other fruits that are tropical fruits they grow in the islands. And by islands, I talk about islands off the shore in Australia, or islands that are standalone. It's of course they're all very different, but we also might consider Torres Strait Island culture and delve into it deeper. So what are anecdotal observations? As you could see from this example, and that's why I love the examples, it is an anecdote. So based on the anecdote, it's a short, personal, usually amusing, interesting story that provides some insight and illustration about a particular topic of interest. Anecdotal records, notes of observations, are recorded as a written account of specific incidents or moments, in our case, learning moments, right? Although anecdotal record can be focused on behavior as well. They provide a holistic view of the child or children development and learning. It's very important to remember that anecdotal records are more factual if you compare them to um, learning stories. They are focused more on facts, and that's why they're a little bit more brief and less flowery in terms of language. At the same time, they are much more detailed if we compare them to jottings. Anecdotal records require descriptive language, so they usually are written with a lot of details, but not as many details or as much details as running records, but they are written in the past tense as well. So think about it as you are telling what happened today to a group of parents or your colleagues, and you are talking about a particular learning incident or learning event that happened. So like I did with our sarong. Anecdotal records also offer retrospective insight into a child's world, usually written after the event, and that's an important part. So you sit down when you have time, you are thinking what happened today during this specific play that I observed, and you write an anecdotal record in the past tense. Similar to diary entries, they capture significant moments in chronological order. So each story, usually like with any observations, that our narrative has a beginning, middle part, and end. These records may focus on specific aspect of child development. For example, you might focus on physical development, explore various areas of development, or provide holistic view, which is well-rounded view of a child's play. You also can choose anecdotal records to observe behavior. So for example, you have a new child who is settling in and you want to see the sense of belonging, so that's when you will be using anecdotal records. Also, you can use anecdotal records for group observations, which is fantastic because it does show interactions, and you can focus on interactions more, include child's voice. So anecdotal records also are quite detailed, so they will provide this picture of what's happening and will give us enough details to consider learning and how to better support children's work towards outcomes. All right. So, creating an anecdotal record, like any other observation, requires skills of observing. So, you need to be able to stop doing what you are doing and see what's happening, hear what's happening, and of course, you have to write it down. So, it's a documented observation. So, it's not a verbal observation that you, like, let's say, you observed something and you tell it to a parent, let's say, or your colleague. Of course, you have to write it down. So you are observing what child said, what they did. You are paying attention to the body language, pronunciation, direct quotes, voice, as I was saying, facial expressions. So the details of where, what, when, who are important to write a good anecdotal observation. So they also are critical for behavior of children, as I said, and development of children. You can focus on any aspect, as I was saying. For example, if you are noticing that child might have some issues with fine motor skills, you can focus on the activity that involves fine motor skills, for example, threading, and describe how child used materials to manipulate. What hand did they use? This is focus on developmental perspective and also shows us the small aspect of it, fine motor skills. You also can consider how children are speaking, so that would be language focused anecdotal record. Anecdotal observations as a practical approach probably are the most popular at the moment. So they are excellent for capturing important events that reveal insights into child's interests, needs, development, abilities, skills, and culture. For example, observing a child playing on the playground can provide us with valuable information about their gross motor skills, about fundamental movement skills, but if we slightly change the focus, we can see their connection with nature, their maybe dispositions as well, curiosity, persistence. Are they outgoing? So their temperament. We also can observe social interaction. So, but outdoor environment usually promotes focus on gross motor skills and fundamental movement skills and play that is outdoor play. Okay. Anecdotal records are not just documents, they are invaluable tools for effective communication with families, community, other educators, and of course, children. So, we are sharing these narratives and we are offering personalized glimpse into child's evolving learning journey. We also are able to see the distance traveled if you have anecdotal record, let's say at the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, and the end of the year. So, we will have three different records or stories, anecdotes that are showing child development that is focusing on the same aspect, let's say social development, or who they play with, whether they play social or not yet social. So it's really about assessment. So it's a really good type of assessment. So as you can see here on the picture, the child is involved in some activity and with a construction set or blocks, and the educator is carefully watching. Yeah. Now let's have a look at this table. It does provide a quick overview of anecdotal records as they are. So they are brief, objective, specific descriptions of a child behavior or particular event. They are written in the past tense. For example, on 15th July at 10:30 a.m. while playing with building blocks, Sarah stacked 10 blocks one on top of the other without them falling. She then clapped her hands and smiled proudly. So that's a very brief, but it's a little bit more detailed than jotting. So you can continue this observation. So it's a good start as well. If you will involve other children, anecdotal observation can definitely capture the group interactions or interactions between children. Strengths of this type of observation. Number one, as I said, it's the most common type of observation, which means you will find hundreds of examples of anecdotal observations done in books. You know that I like Programming and Planning book by Arthur and others. I also like Karen's books. You also have specific books on observations that I will recommend later, but they are beautiful anecdotal observations examples in our professional textbooks, and you can find them also in the book that is called EYLF in Action. Watch my video on that topic as well. They also provide enough details. So they are detailed snapshots of specific events, learning behaviors, and this way they are more effective in terms of details enough to think about what's next and better support child's learning. Because jottings give us insider views, they are quite often very brief. The teacher who is doing these jottings, they understand what they are involved in and what these jottings are part of or what they indicate, but they don't provide other educator with enough details to turn it into a long anecdotal observation. Try use a jotting and offer ChatGPT to create an anecdotal story or learning story based on that, and you will see a lot of imagination, but it would be far from reality because the AI will have to fill the gaps. So same happens with jottings. If we don't know the context of observations, we don't know where this happened, who was involved, what the mood children were in, then it doesn't really allow us to elaborate. So this is really good because it is a detailed observation. If we are observing development or behavior, it would be enough to see where a child is at, or it could be the first step to observing child consistently to be able to support them even more. The weaknesses. So weakness number one, and you know I come from non-English speaking background. English is a second language for me, and students who I teach also are learners of English. So for people who are not able to write well or to express their thoughts in thoughts well through language, it might be a little bit of a difficult type of observation to do. So the other problem is limited context of the observed behavior. So although we might be given very detailed recollection of event, we still were not there. So it would be great to have, like in my case with Sarong's story, pictures. Yeah, the pictures will really add this depth, and if you have video records, that would be even better. Before we move on to another example, I need to share this quote by John Dewey: observation alone is not enough. We have to understand the significance of what we see, hear, and touch. And that's definitely appropriate application to anecdotal records. You need to develop skills in writing when it comes to observation. So if you think about the weakness that I mentioned, you also need to develop ability to write with enough details and use positive and constructive language. This applies to all observations: jottings, learning stories, anecdotal observations, running records, and etc. But you definitely need to focus on developing this skill, right? So the skill of writing, using key expressions and words. And what I usually recommend is to read other observations, highlight the key words, read EYLF, our early years learning framework, belonging, being, becoming, to become more familiar with the expressions that are professional, that you can use in your observations. Also consider books on development, so you can use the expressions such as fundamental movement skills, dynamic balance, with proficiency, that you know what is solitary play and able to explain it, what is zone of proximal development. That's good understanding of theories. So to summarize, to be able to write observations, you need this language that is professional, constructive, positive, focusing on child's strengths. So you need to be able to describe child learning in a good way. For that matter, I created a list of descriptive words that you can download for free on my PayHip site. So please follow the link in description below and download those keywords. They will help you as building blocks to build your own first anecdotal observation. You also can read more. Reading allows us to see how stories are framed, how they are done, and you probably already have experience with writing because you went to school, you finished school, you wrote a lot of essays, and if you went to university, you're definitely familiar with this type of beginning, middle part, and end, and structure of writing in a structured and flowing way. So the other thing you can focus on also is learning more about theories. That's why Storykate is dedicated to unpacking the key concepts so that you can use them just like that. Now let's move on to the next observation, that is called Little Nests. I wanted to tell you in advance that this story is one of the oldest observations that I made. It's not perfect, and that's the reason why I'm sharing it with you, because writing is a skill that develops over time, and you need to give yourself some time to develop skills in writing, especially writing learning observations. So start where you are and do what you can, and then improve a little bit every single day. All right, so today, so you see I identified the context. We've been exploring white clay in the preschool room. I've brought a big chunk of clay from the pottery and set it up for children. We discussed that we could make, and children shared their ideas. As we recently started an inquiry project on food and cooking, I suggested making something like a cake, or a fruit, or a vegetable. Here are children looking at the materials. So you see a creative mess over there, which is cool. Now, Alira made a ball. She rolled it, and she said, I made an egg. I want to make an egg too, said Claire. And me too, said Matthew. So you see, I included children's voice here, and this documentation, this documented anecdotal observation is written in the past. Can we make a nest? Can you make a nest? Can you make me a nest for my eggs? Asked Coin, who finished rolling little clay balls. I showed them how to make a nest. Matthew, Coin, and Alira made some nests and eggs. Claire seemed to enjoy kneading and patting clay. We also found out that clay becomes dry. When it's dry, it's not sticky anymore. Alira and Messi wanted to add some water, but how much water should be added to make a proper mix? Alira put some water in the bowl and the other children wet their hands. Clay was smooth on their hands when we added some water. When we finished making nests, children helped to clean up the table and put the rest of the clay in the airtight container. So very brief anecdotal record, but shows you what happened, right? So it also is provided with some pictures of samples. So samples is when you see the finished product, or of the process when you see how children are rolling things into, let's say, nests or eggs. So this is really good observation. In my opinion, it's not perfect, but it is good and solid because it does include all the things that I covered. Strengths-based, descriptive. It tells the story what happened. It also includes children interactions and children's voice. It has a beginning and the end, and it's like an anecdote, right? So it's a finished product. Now, remember what Dewey said, it's not enough to observe, you need to understand what you are looking at. And here we're going to apply some analysis. During this experience, children showed or demonstrated a range of skills, such as problem solving and experimentation, adding water, making perfect mix. They were able to resource their learning through connecting with people when they asked me to help to make nests and natural materials, clay and water. They were actively engaged in the process for more than 40 minutes, showing perseverance. They also were able to draw on their creativity and imagination while trying up new ideas. By cleaning up the table, they demonstrated respect and care, appreciation for natural environment. What is next? As clay exploration provided opportunity for children to be engaged in meaningful learning relationships and peer scaffolding, we can make clay part of everyday experience. We also can focus on birds and nests and make a bird feeder or consider how to make a nest with real loose parts. So here you can go on and on in suggesting possibilities, but the most important thing is focus on the interest. And here in this anecdotal record, I captured who was involved, what were they doing, what is their interest. And if you focus on development, you can see that some children skills were basic, they enjoy sensory part of it, and some children went further and started to be engaged in creative play when they started to make something. So you also can call it symbolic play, because when they made an egg, it is a symbol of an egg. It's not a real egg, right? So that means that they are now transitioning to the next stage of development according to Piaget, which is a symbolic stage, right? So Vygotsky also was talking about symbolic play and its importance. How to start, right? So of course, as I said, step by step. Always ensure to include essential details, basically the date you are recording your observation, the time, in the morning, in the afternoon, you can write exact time, let's say 10:30. Setting, for example, is a table, at the table, indoors, outdoors, is it on the walk, names of children who were involved, curriculum area or domain. Provide objective description. Objective means that you remove your personal opinions as much as possible, focusing on facts. During conversations and observations, note down the exact words spoken by children and educators. Focus on describing what you observe and hear. Avoid summarizing behavior or adding interpretation in this first written part, because the written part is observation, the second part is analysis. So now we are talking about just the first step, right? Write the record promptly after the event. It's good to have a notebook where you will probably make some jottings as you are involved with children. You want to pay full attention to the activity, but you also can make few notes, yeah? And that's how jottings and anecdotal records will work together really well. Jottings will have you, they will help you to capture children's words and maybe few details, but then The sooner you document and sit down and be able to write it down, the more accurate and objective your anecdotal record will be. Believe me, because I've done it a lot. If time passes, I forget all the details or half of them. So it's better to do it on the spot if possible, like at least within few hours. Delayed documentation may lead to more subjective observations and more vague observations. And as you can imagine, I am against using ChatGPT for observations because that's what happens. They're becoming vague and they are becoming imaginative, so not real. So it's better to write poorly by yourself than using AI at the moment, I think, at least, to create documentation. Documentation is part of our job, so you better become better at it than outsource this part of your job. When describing child's actions and words, use specific language that encompasses facial expressions, their actions, tone of voice. And that's when you need descriptive words. Steer clear of offering interpretations of the child's feelings. Stick to factual descriptions to maintain objectivity in your records. So this is our final slide. I hope you learned something about anecdotal observations. You were able to see a few examples. I encourage you to keep looking, keep focusing on gaining this skill of writing. And I also would like to ask you to comment under this video, what are your favorite ways to observe children? How familiar are you with anecdotal observations? And what else would you like Storykate to make videos about? Thanks for watching. Bye for now.